Hello. Let's start with chapter 1 of social studies, that is the chapter of history, when, where, and how. Now, in your book, there are subpoints like division of the medieval period, sources of information, literary and archaeology, different names of India, medieval period, influence of geography on Indian history. So, let's begin with doing each topic in detail. Right. So, the first thing which you need to understand is the emergence of a new era. Now, in your previous book, you learnt about the ancient India, you learnt about the Indus civilization, the Vedic age, the Guptas, the Mauryas. Now, in your grade 7, we will be talking about the medieval period. So, what is this medieval period all about? Now, this period it covers the time period that is from 700 AD to 1750 AD. Now, how many years can you just think of in this medieval period? So, the long period of about 1100 years. So, I will repeat the medieval period is from 700 AD to 1750, and this is a long period of 1100 years. Now, this period, for our convenience, has been divided into two parts. One, the early medieval period. Number two, the later medieval period. In the early medieval period, the time period is 88th to 13th century, and in the later medieval period, the time period is 13th to 18th century. Now, this very first slide is very important, so you need to understand, right? The medieval period 700 to 1750 AD. It has a long period of 1100 years. The early medieval period 8th to 13th, later 13th to 18th. So, first, we will be talking about the early medieval period. So, what was happening in this period? First point is that powerful dynasties ruled in different parts of India, like the Palas, Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas, Cholas, and the Rajput. There was a constant power struggle among the regional kingdoms of north and south. Now, because of this constant power struggle, it led to frequent rise and fall of kingdoms. Sometimes the new kingdoms were taking place and the older kingdoms were receding in terms of their areas. Let's have a look at the map. Now, this is your Pala dynasty, Rashtrakuta dynasty, then Pratihara dynasty. Now, this we are talking in 800 Common Era or your AD, right? And then if you see from here, from the Rashtrakutas, now you have Cholas, the Pala empire, its whole area shrank. Now it is still here. Now this is your Ghaznavid empire, which I will be talking about the arrival of the Turks, Mahmud Ghaznavi, then Muhammad Ghori. Now this whole area, as you can see, this brown area, these are all your Rajput states. Now, this is more exactly this whole area, the mid of this is your Rajput kingdoms. So, this is what I told you that in the 8th to 13th century, powerful dynasties ruled in various parts of India. Palas, Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas, Cholas, Rajput. There was a constant power struggle, and this led to frequent rise and fall of kingdoms. But something more also happened in the early medieval period. What was that? Now, along with these internal troubles, one more thing happened that the Turks began to invade India from 1000 AD. And ultimately, Turks established their kingdoms called as the Delhi Sultanate. Now, very easily, it is very important that we always learn the time period of the medieval India. We know it is from 700 to 1750 AD. But sometime your teacher can also ask you questions on Delhi Sultanate. So you need to understand that the time period of Delhi Sultanate is 1200 AD to 1526 AD. Now, Delhi Sultanate has had about five important dynasties. Now, students like you get confused that what was Delhi Sultanate a kingdom? Yes, Delhi Sultanate was a kingdom, but about five dynasties ruled under this. Number one is the slave dynasty. Number two, Khiljis. then Tughlaqs, Sayyid and Lodhis. Later, Delhi sultans were overthrown by Mughals in the 16th century. Now, we know that Delhi Sultanate or the Delhi Sultans and even the Mughals were Muslim rulers. So, what happened when these Muslim rulers came to our country? Now, lots of things happened, lots of good things happened. One, there was a birth of new religion, which is Islam. Till now, we have read about Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, but with the arrival of the Delhi Sultans and the Mughal, a new religion came into being, and that was Islam. New languages also came into being, which were the two languages, Arabic and the Persian. And this new culture, which was actually an amalgamation of the Indian and the Islamic culture, this new culture came to be known as Indo-Islamic culture. And new type of foods also came. The biryani, korma, pulao, firni that we all today eat actually came with the arrival of the Muslim rulers in our country. Fruits like mango, grapes, then tobacco, chilies, and ice was also introduced during this period. Now, another thing happened. Now, we have just studied that how various dynasties were fighting, like the Palas, Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas, Rajputs, and then came the Turks, the Turkish invasions, and with the Turks, they established the Delhi Sultanate. We talked about the slave dynasty, Khiljis, Tughlaq, Sayyid, and Lodhis. Then the Delhi Sultanate was overthrown by the Mughals in the 16th century. But another important power also came into our country. You know who these were? Europeans. Yes, towards the end of 15th century, Europeans came to India. Why did they come to India? Because they wanted to trade with India. The first to arrive in India were not the English, but the Portuguese, followed by English, Dutch, and French. But these English people were very smart. By the middle of 18th century, they were able to oust all the other European trading powers like Dutch, Portuguese, French, and then they started the process of conquering and colonizing India. Now, let's revise. What have we done till here? Let me see how many questions can you answer. The medieval period covers from dash to dash. So it covers from 700 to 1750 AD. Name the two phases of medieval India. Early medieval age, 8th to 13th century, and later medieval period, 13th to 18th century. Name any two powerful dynasties during the early medieval period. So you can talk about Palas, Rashtrakutas, Pratiharas, Cholas, right? When did the Turks came? From 1000 AD. Dash established the Delhi Sultanate, Turks. With the arrival of Muslim rulers, dash religion came into being? Islam. And if you answered them correct, very good. Now let's go on. Name two new languages introduced during the medieval period. Arabic and Persian. Very good. Name any two dishes, new dishes during the medieval period. Biryani, pulao. Which new fruits were introduced during the medieval period? Mango, grapes. Which new costume arrived during the medieval period? Sherwani, churidar. Name the culture which evolved during the medieval period. Indo-Islamic culture. Which European trader were the first one to arrive in India? And they were Portuguese. Right. Now, the second topic that we will be doing is impact of geography on history. Ever wondered why our history is like that? When I talk about the history of England or I talk about the history of America, it is different. That means the kind of geography that we have has an impact on our history. So let's talk about the subpoints that we will be dealing. We'll be talking about the different ports, mountains, Biolis, and war. Okay, first is ports. Ports like Surat, Masulipatam, Cambay, Cochin. Now, because these ports were a part of our geography, they became the major centers of internal and foreign trade. Mountains. Mountains in North India, especially in Rajasthan, led to building of strong forts in Chittorgarh, Jodhpur and Jaisalmer. Biolis. Water scarcity in Gujarat and Rajasthan led to creation of biolis for storing water. Wars. Frequent wars were fought to control important territories between the river Ganga and Yamuna, Godavari and Tungabhadra. Now, you know what? Now, today we talk about India. Today we also say that India is the name, that is the name of our country, but there were various names of this country. First is Aryavarta. This was the name, the ancient name of India. Then came the name Bharata. India is described as Bharat in Sanskrit literature. There is Hindustan. Now, Hindustan is derived from the Persian word Hind or Hindu, which means same as Sindhu in Sanskrit. You must be very surprised to know that Sindhu was actually a name which was given to Indus because these Persians could not speak Indus, so they distorted it with the name as Sindhu. And from the Sindhu, it appeared as Hindu. So this Hindu or Hindustan, that was first time used in the 13th century by Minhas us Shiraj. And here, you know what he meant? He meant the areas of Punjab, Haryana, and land between Ganga and Yamuna. And this area was ruled by Delhi sultans. And when Minhas used the term Hindustan, he did not think that South India was the part of this term. He only used this term to describe the areas of Punjab, Haryana, and the land between Ganga and Yamuna, the area which was ruled by the Delhi sultans. But when the Mughals came and when Babur used this term Hindustan, he meant the entire subcontinent, which means the North India as well as the South India. So, how many names have we learnt? Aryavarta, the ancient name of India, Bharat, as described in the Sanskrit literature, Hindustan, which has been derived from the Persian word Hind, which means the same as Sindhu in Sanskrit. And this term was used by Minhas us Shiraj. So let's revise again. Now, when I will be speaking these questions, you may not look at the answers and try to answer it yourself. Name the two major ports. Cambay, Cochin. Name any two areas where forts have been found. Jodhpur, Jaisalmer. Biolis were created in dash and dash, Gujarat and Rajasthan. Wars were fought over land between which two set of rivers? So wars were fought for the rivers between Ganga and Yamuna and Godavari and Tungabhadra. What was the name of India in the ancient times? Aryavarta, or you can also say Bharat, Bharata. What was India known during the medieval period? Hindustan. Who gave the term Hindustan for the first time? Persians. Was South India considered a part of Hindustan by Minhas us Shiraj? No. In fact, it was regarded as a part only by Babur. When he mentioned Hindustan, he meant both. But when Minhas us Shiraj mentioned Hindustan, he only meant the northern part of the country. Okay, now we come to the sources. Now this is little bit confusing, so I will go very slowly, and wherever you have any problem, just go back to my video and you can see that again. Now, in fact, we will talk about the sources of the history of India. Now, they are major two sources, the literary sources, which talks about the books, the written material, and archaeological sources like the paintings, the coins. So first of all, we will be talking about the literary sources. Now, from your book, I could just make out that there are 5 sources that they are talking about in the literary sources. Important ones, first, the account of the Indian writers. And the important one is your foreign accounts. But in a very short sentences, they have also mentioned about the other 3. So first, account of the Indian writers. Number 2, the religious literature. Number 3, the secular literature. Number 4, the government records. And number 5, the foreign accounts. So we will be doing the sources one by one. First of all, accounts of the Indian writers. Now, again, in the accounts, you have three subparts. You have the biographies, you have the account by the court historians, then you have the account written by the scholars. So we are just doing first point, that is under the literary sources, accounts of the Indian writers. So we are doing the biographies, account of the court historians, account written by the scholars. Now, biographies. Biographies means the books written. Now, we are talking about the autobiographies here, that the books which have been written on the kings themselves. So it is very easy to remember because you only have two biographies to learn. As the name says, Babar it is a biography or a story written about Babar by Babar. So Babar Nama written by Babar, Jahangir Nama written by Jahangir. So you have just added the word Nama with the name of these Mughal rulers. So you only have to learn two biographies, Babar Nama and Jahangir Nama. Number two, we will be talking about the court historians. First of all, we need to understand who were the court historians. Now, these historians were appointed by the rulers to record events of their rule. In this, we will be doing about three books. Now, two books, Ayan-e Akbari and Akbarnama, they were written by Abul Fazl. He was the court historian during the time of Akbar. Tariq-e-Firoz Shahi by Zia-ud-Din Bairani. So I'll repeat, the names are Persian in Urdu, so they are little difficult, but if you just read it again and again, it won't be that problem. So let's just say with me, Aine Akbari, Akbarnama by Abul Fazl, Tariq-e-Firoz Shahi by Zia-ud-Din Bairani. Now, there were some scholars also. They wrote about the kingdoms in which they lived. Such books came to be known as the court chronicles. Now, we have two examples to be learned here. One, Raja Tirangani. Now, this is the history on Kashmir, and this has been written by Kalhana. Number two book is your Prithvi Raj Raso. Prithvi Raj Raso by Chand Bardai. So it is so easy to learn. There are just few names to be learned. Now biographies, if you just learn the two rulers, that is Babar and Jahangir, and add Nama to that. So the biographies were called as Babar Nama, written by Babar, Jahangir Nama, written by Jahangir. Aine Akbari, Akbar Nama by Abul Fazl, Tariq-e-Firoz Shahi by Ziauddin Berani. Now we have these the scholars who wrote about the kingdoms in which they lived, like Raj Tirangani, History of Kashmir by Kalhana, and Prithvi Raj Raso by Chand Bardai. There are other writings also, so you can just read them. Shahnama by Firdausi, Shah Jahan Nama by Inayat Khan, Tabat-e-Firoz Shahi by Minhaj us Shiraj. Right? Now, a name. Al-Biruni will time and again come in your book. So you will have a question in mind that who was Al-Biruni? Now, I talked about your Mahmud Ghaznavi. Mahmud Ghaznavi, when he came to India, Al-Biruni came along with him. He lived in India. He saw whatever the social conditions in India, the geography of India, and then he wrote a book named as Takak-e-Hind. Tabak-e-Hind, the book described the social, religious, and the political conditions of India. Now, let's go back to the slide first. Now, we have done the accounts of Indian writers. Now, quickly, we will do the religious literature, secular literature, and the government records. I have put everything in just one slide. Now, in the religious literature, you have Mahabharat and Ramayana. In the secular literature, you have literature written in various regional languages like Bengali, Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, Tamil, and Malayalam. You also have writings by Bhakti and Sufi saint. Now, the religious and the secular sources, what do they tell us? They tell us about the life and the values of the people who lived there. Then is archives. Archives means the government documents, the royal orders, any treaties that were signed between the rulers, and the court records. So all these are sources. They tell us about the that particular time of the history, how did the government function, right? So all this, what kind of coins did they use? So these are called as your archives, the government documents, royal treaties, royal orders, treaties, and the court records. Now, the foreign accounts. Now, what are these foreign accounts? Actually, these travelers from foreign lands came to India, and whatever they saw in India, whatever they experienced in India, they wrote their true experiences in their book. Like Al-Biruni, I told you, whom had he come with? Mahmud Ghaznavi. He wrote Tabaq-e-Hind. The number two, which we will be doing, is Ibn Battuta. Now, he came during the reign of Muhammad Tughlaq, and the book he wrote was Rahila. Al Masudi, Niccolo Conti. Niccolo Conti was an Italian traveler, and he has written a detailed description about Vijayanagar Empire. Sir Thomas Roe, Francis Bernier, Domingo Pies, and Marco Polo. So these all were the foreign travelers who came to India. They wrote whatever they saw and experienced in India. The questions which have repeatedly come is the book written by Al-Biruni, Tabaq-e-Hind, who wrote Rahila, Ibn Battuta, and he had come during the reign of Muhammad Tughlaq. Then is Niccolo Conti, an Italian traveler. He has described about Vijayanagar Empire, right? Okay, now some questions of all the slides that I've asked. Name two major sources of history. One, literary. Number two, archaeological. Name two biographies. Babarnama, Jahangirnama. Name two books written by Abul Fazl. Aine Akbari and Akbarnama. Who wrote Raj Tarangani, book on history of Kashmir? As it is from Kashmir, that is K, so even the author is from K, Kalhana. Name the book which gives an account of Prithvi Raj Chauhan. So the account of Prithvi Raj Chauhan is in the title of the ruler itself. So it will be Prithvi Raj Raso by Bardai. So as you can see from here, this is Prithvi Raj Chauhan. So you can just find out the name of the author from here, Prithvi Raj Raso. Chauhan is from C, so it is Chand Bardai. Then is name two religious sources, Ramayana and Mahabharat. Al-Biruni wrote Tabaq-e-Hind. Then who gives detailed description of Vijayanagar Empire? Niccolo Conti. What was the capital of Vijayanagar Empire? Hampi. Ibn Battuta visited India during the reign of Muhammad Tughlaq. Then is archaeological sources. So what will you have in the archaeological sources? Monument, paintings, sculptures, inscriptions, coins, weapons, clothes, and ornaments. Now, what is a monument? Any building of historical significance is known as monument. Now, monument could be a fort, could be a palace, could be a temple, could be a house. So any building which has historical significance attached to it is known as the monument. So what does that monument tell us about the history? It talks about the architectural, the skills, that the art of stone cutting, the sculpture. It also tells about the lifestyle of the people. Then, number two is coin. The study of coin is called as numismatic. Now, what were these coins made up of? Were they made up of some kind of leather? No, they were made up of gold, silver, copper. And the Delhi Sultans, Mughals, Chols, they all issued many coins. What is the importance of coin? Why do we need to study coin? Coins give us a lot of information about the political, economic, and cultural life. Political, because the kind of ruler that issued had its picture on that, right? And then economic, because if the coins were made up of gold, that means that particular dynasty was very rich, about the cultural life, like whatever is depicted talks about their cultural life. Then is the paintings. Now, paintings tell us about the custom, tradition, costumes, and jewelry of the medieval period. Now, there are four type of paintings. One, Mughal paintings, Rajasthani, miniature, and Dakhani. So these are the four types of paintings which you, and questions have also been asked on that. So you remember there are four type of paintings: Mughal art, Rajasthani, miniature, and Dakhani or Deccan. They give us an interesting insight into the palace scenes, the hunting expedition, and scenes from mythology. So all these paintings, they just depict these scenes, and from these paintings, we can know about the historical period of that particular time. देन इज स्कल्पचर. स्कल्पचर जिसे हम कहते हैं मूर्तियां बनाना, तो इसमें कौन से मेटल्स यूज होते थे? दे वर मेड अप ऑफ ब्रॉन्ज एंड स्टोन. नाउ व्हाट इज ब्रॉन्ज? ब्रॉन्ज इज अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ कॉपर प्लस tin. Now, what were the themes? What were they making these statues on? The sculptures of the medieval period were mainly on what themes? One, the statues of the god was made, the statues of the kings and queens were made. And what type of information do these sculptures give us? They tell us about the hairstyle, the costumes, and the ornaments of the medieval period. Now, if you look at the sculptures of the medieval period, you will find that even the kings used to wear lot of jewelry, which normally today the boys of today will not be wearing them, but you see them wearing different kind of ornaments during medieval period. You can know what kind of hairstyle they were making, or what kind of costumes they were wearing. So all this you can come to know by looking at the sculpture. And these sculptures were mainly made up of bronze and stone, right? And the theme were the statues of God, kings, and queens. Now comes inscriptions. Now inscriptions are written records. Now what did they deal with? They deal with the royal orders or information about donation to villages and temple. Sometimes they also refer to achievements of the king. So these inscriptions are generally the written records. What do they actually recorded? One, the royal orders, that whatever the ruler ordered, that was written, or whatever donations that he gave to villages and temple, that was written. And sometimes the achievement of the king was also written. So in this way they give us interesting information about social, political, and economic conditions of people in the medieval period. Now, when we talk about the inscriptions, were these inscriptions written on some notebooks? No, no, no. They were not written on the notebooks. They were engraved on rocks, stones, copper plates, or temple walls. Very, very important. These inscriptions were not written on any kind of notebooks. They were written on rocks, stones, copper plates, and temple walls. So now what is the next trivia? Now you will tell me, what is the study of inscriptions called? And it is called as epigraphy. Now then another term came into being, that was your numismatics. That is the study of coins. Now, what is the role of the historian? What does the historian do? Now, first, he has to analyze. Now, historian will see all the sources. He will analyze the sources. He will see that which are wrong, which are right, which are biased, which are unbiased. And the second duty is he will examine, then interpret all the sources, and he will write an unbiased. He's not talking good things about only one person. He will talk whatever is the reality and systematic historical account. Now, the period between 700 to 1750 is a very dynamic period. Now, this is a heading in your book. Why? Let's just study that. Now, a lot of developments took place during this period. That is why this period was very dynamic. First, I told you, lots of new group of people came in India from outside. Turks, then the Khiljis, Tughlaqs, Mughals, Persians. Now, these people came from outside, but we also had some indigenous people who were very new to India, like the Rajput, Marathas, Sikh, Jats, and Ahoms. They also became politically very important during this time. Now, you must have heard about Ranjit Singh, you must have heard about Shivaji, right? So, all these rulers they became very important during the medieval period. New food item came like the potatoes, corn, and chilies. If you remember in your previous class when you were talking about ancient India, did you read about that the people of Indus civilization grew potatoes? No, or the corn or chilies? No, these new food items came during the medieval period. But there was one negative also, because in the ancient India, we only talked about the four caste or the four varnas, but now in the medieval period, it got divided, subdivided into number of jatis or the sub-jatis. Number four, there was emergence of bhakti movement, because now what was happening, people started blindly believing in superstitions. So bhakti movement reiterated that God can be reached through love and devotion. There is no need for any complicated ritual, and bhakti movement did not believe in caste hierarchy. For them, everyone was equal. And fifth, new religion Islam came into being, and Islam was based on the worship of one God, that is Allah, and before whom all are equal despite their social and economic differences. So this period is actually very dynamic. New people came, new food items came, society became more complex. Now four caste and four varnas got subdivided into number of jatis and subjatis. There was emergence of bhakti movement. We will also study about the Sufi movement, and new religion Islam came into being in the 7th century. Now, there are certain important terms which have been given at the end of your book. The first term is manuscript. What is a manuscript? Manu means manual, right? Whenever you have your any kind of instructions, you have manual instructions. Manual means whatever you do with a hand. So manuscript means written document. So manu means handwritten document, a book, or any other record. Chronicle, a series of events in a factual and a detailed way. It could be fictitious, it could be factual, but it describes the series of event. Numismatic, the study of coins. Epigraphy, the study of inscriptions. Medieval period, a period of Indian history from 700 to 1750 AD. Tabaq-e-Hind, a book written by Al-Biruni describing the social, religious and political conditions of India during the reign of Mahmud Ghaznavi. Now, this is the kind of the data or the table which you have at the end of your book. So I will just help you in reading that table if it is difficult for you. Now, in that table, it is very sweetly given. Sorry for this. Now, so it is given literary sources, archaeological sources. In the literary, there is accounts of the Indian writers Raja Tirangani, The History of Kashmir by Kalhana, Prithvi Raj Raso by Chand Bardai, Babar Nama by Babar, Jahangir Nama by Jahangir, Shahnama by Firdausi, Shah Jahan Nama by Inayat Khan, account of the foreign traveler writers sorry. Then is Tabaq-e-Hind by Al-Biruni, Rahila by Ibn Battuta, Al-Masudi, Niccolo Conti. Now, if you remember, he wrote about Vijayanagar Empire, and what was the capital of Vijayanagar Empire? Hampi. Francis Bernier, Domenico Pies, and Marco Polo. The court chronicles Tabat-e-Firoz Shahi by Minhaz us Shiraj. Akbarnama by Abul Fazl, Aine Akbari by Abul Fazl, Tariq-e-Firoz Shahi by Zia-Uddin Birani. It is very difficult to learn these names, isn't it? So what can you do? I would suggest just write them on your notebook 1 or 2 times, you can read them. If that is difficult for you, I have another suggestion. What you do is just read these names and record it on your phone. So whenever you are sitting free, just put in your earplugs and listen to these names. And I'm sure by listening to these names quite frequently, you will be able to learn them. The most important could be just speaking it very loudly. Tabat-e Firoz Shahi, Minhaz us Shiraj, Akbar Nama Aine Akbari by Abul Fazl, Tariq-e Firoz Shahi by Zia Uddin Barani. Then, in the archaeological sources, monuments, sculptures, coin, clothes, tools, utensils, weapons, ornament, and your paintings. Your book also has a very interesting column which says at the same time elsewhere. Now, this is what was happening in the medieval period in India, but in Europe, this is known as the Middle Ages, and they say it from the 5th century AD to 16th century. So what was happening in Europe? In Europe, this period was marked by feudalism. There was dominance of Roman Catholic Church. Number two, there were frequent wars among the feudal lords. There was decline of towns and cities. People could not think free, and there was suppression of free and liberal thinking by Roman Catholic Church, because whatever Roman Catholic Church said was considered the truth. And when you will be in your higher classes, you will be reading about two new things, which is your Renaissance and Reformation. So, the Middle Ages in Europe also came to be known as the Dark Ages. So, this completes chapter 1 of your book. Thank you so much for watching this chapter on my video. If you have any queries, you can send me your queries through your comments, any kind of suggestions, any other way you want me to teach you, most welcome. See you all and thank you very much.